all the oil we need. But it is a contraction of the infrastructure. I'm talking about terminals, refineries, and so forth. And Katrina 2005, excellent example, folks. Think about it. Go back to 2005. Pull out your tax returns and all your receipts. Look what you were spending for gas and food after Katrina. It all spiked up. Why? Not because there was a shortage of oil. There was a shortage of oil infrastructure. And it's really important for y'all to understand that, you know, if farming was done today the way it was done up to, you know, World War II, and we could feed maybe 2.5, 3 billion people tops. So really, the majority of people living on the planet today are here because of something artificial, and it's called petroleum-based agribusiness. And part of that green revolution that kicked in back in the 1950s with petroleum-based fertilizers, petroleum-based pesticides. And think about it. Next time you go to the store, you know, I was a kid. I can still remember when I was a kid, and as you can, well, I'm going to show some gray hair here. But when it was time for apples, I'd go to the store, and there were like 20 different kinds of apples, all grown, local farms, and they were just all absolutely exquisite, just delicious. You could pick those things up and just smell them. And God, they smelled so good to make you hungry. Today you go in, you don't have so many varieties, and where they're coming from South America and all these other places, this stuff's coming in, you know, it's truck ripened fruit. And you pick it up and you go to smell it, you really don't smell much. And, you know, you bite into it, a lot of times it just doesn't taste that good. It just looks pretty, sits on the shelf nice. Well, all of that's oil infrastructure. That's the reason why we have it in our stores. And the other thing people have to understand is with merchandising and just in time is that we're on, you may think there's an awful lot of inventory in the stores, and there is. But next time you're in the fruits and vegetables department, produce department, look in those displays, the ones where you see like all of those fruit crates stacked up, all right? And then on top of that is your apples and your oranges and whatever. Well, all of that stuff is what you see is what you see. Below it is nothing but cardboard. That's it. But you have that sensation of, wow, it's really something. And what I see coming, guys, it's going to bite people in the tuchus, is the ghost of Y2K past, the millennium bug. Now, you know, there's a lot of people who laugh at that and they think it's a non-event. I remember Michio Kaku went on to warn about solar storms. And he was ridiculed on Fox by the news entertainer and saying, wow, this is just another one of these, you know, Y2K scares. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I worked in the computer industry for well over 2 decades. And in my last 6 years, I specialized in Internet technologies. Not the part where you see when you log in. I was the guy that was documenting and doing analysis on systems that were in that black hole on the other side of your modem. That just, things kind of work mysteriously and it gets there. Well, that was what I was immersed in. That's what I understood. And the real threat of Y2K, and by the way, Y2K was a Titanic that did not hit the iceberg. Period. I know, I worked in it. I actually documented the Achilles heel of the national computing grid that really had everybody scared to death. I was hired to do that by Hewlett-Packard. It's called messaging systems. Well,
Marshall, they saved the day in the nick of time, didn't they? So to speak.
Well, you know, I mean, Y2K, people don't understand that before computer automation, you know, imagine you go to the store, you go to get a box of cornflakes. You take it up, scan it, go home, unpack it, get in front of the TV, you know, you pour a bowl and you put some milk in there and you take a big munchy bunch and watch Dancing with the Stars. Well, from the time you picked it off the shelf and put it on the scanner to the time you're sitting there munching and your first bowl of cereal in front of the Dancing with the Stars, a whole series of computers have had a long conversation about it, and it's completely automated. There's no human intervention. The store talks to its local office, the local office talks to wholesalers and distributors, and then they talk on to other computers, and that all of this stuff is incrementally done until finally Kellogg's or whoever you got your cornflakes from understands that they got to replace that one box that you just bought off the shelf. And how does it all work? Well, it's called supply chain management. And what it really means is before computers, Kellogg's and other companies knew that they had to have a 90-day supply of food in the distribution chain because it was all manual and it was all inefficient. And it had to be like a big slinky that could pick up the slack. And why is that? Because shelf space is absolutely paramount. You know, go back on Google and look at pictures of grocery stores from the 60s and the 50s. And the first thing you notice is that the shelves were half as high as they are now. They didn't stock anywhere near the inventory because everything they needed was out in the supply chain. But now the supply chain is no longer 90 days. It's 90 hours. That's it. 90 hours, not 90 days. And so what happens is that all it takes is a few vital computers to go down. And then at that point, then they're just simply no longer going to be working. All right? The whole grid goes down. Think of it like you got a banquet table, all right? And there on the banquet table, you got every kind of goodie for dinner. And then somebody comes and they kick out one leg of the table. That's it. You got the other three legs going, but they kick out the other leg of the table. And what happens? Next thing you know, you're eating off the floor. That was the whole thing of Y2K that had all these companies scared. There was enough money spent on Y2K to finance a major war in the Middle East. And these checks were written by people that not only wear belts and suspenders to work, but they wear 2 pairs of them because they understood. And after Y2K, you know, you had, everybody was expecting airplanes to fall out of the sky and nuclear reactors to blow up. Well, that didn't happen. Why? Because it was all nonsense that was pitched to the American people by gold and silver brokers. The nuclear reactor is going to blow up. Buy gold. That was it. These were the guys that were panicking people. All right? But the real panic was all you needed was a couple of these critical computers using all these automated messaging systems to just fold up because of Y2K issues. And the whole system comes down. At that point, our railroad system, which there are no more manual switches, they're all computer-controlled electronic switches. We'd have had most of our produce, meats, vegetables, whatnot, sitting on abandoned rail sidings while everyone tried to sort things out and dusting off the old manual procedures. It could have thrown the country into a depression. And it was a real serious threat. And yet, after all was said and done, the people who sounded the alarm and actually did the right things were crucified. You know, I mean, that was when, you know, Bill O'Reilly and I parted company. Yeah, you know, off with their heads. You know, and he just was really ripping them, and I'm going, man, didn't you ever bother to do one stitch of homework? Not one stitch of homework. Well, the heroes were all kicked in the teeth for Y2K, but it was a Titanic didn't hit the berg. But the problem is the very same vulnerability still exists today. That's what people don't understand. Absolutely. It's a just-in-time environment, and what people don't understand is that most of the inventory in the system is sitting on the shelves in the store. And when that's gone, that's it. And what you're going to have is like when you have major storms and they're just going in and pulling up Yeah, people just take everything out of the store, and when there's nothing left, they start taking out shelvings and ripping up floor tile because they get crazy. They get crazy. And so I think that, all of you guys have made the point right. I mean, this is for people really seriously to start doing it now, because right now, 99% of the people out there are busy watching Dancing with the Stars, folks. That's it. They're just watching Dancing with the Stars and thinking, well, I'm not going to worry about it. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. And then they're going to go out and think that it's all going to be there at Costco and at Walmart and whatnot. No, it'll be there for 90 hours.
They're tuned into that just-in-time stuff then.
That's right. They're completely programmed to it. And it's just something which I've come to realize is the reason why it's so hard to find people who are really going to seriously, start planning to do things. All right? That's why it's so hard to find people because we are programmed now with just-in-time thinking. And, the problem is when the guacamole hits the fan, everyone's going to race to the store, and then that's it. It's down to a trickle. And, I did traveling in Russia after it opened up in the 90s, and I saw those long lines. I was in stores where you'd see an entire meat case, wall to wall. All these refrigerated meat cases were just empty, and there'd be one ham sitting there. And it was old.
I hate to interrupt you, Mark. You said you were in Russia and you saw that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that.
Yeah, I remember those
lines.
I remember seeing it on TV or in the paper.
Yeah.
Empty shelves.
Yeah, empty shelves. Empty
now,
shelves.
I can tell
People
you
have
personal
no
experience
idea.
with Katrina. Katrina's a good thing to look at if you want to know what society is going to be like in a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as far
I agree.
It's a good example. It's just chaos. There was nothing here, no infrastructure. Couldn't get water. Couldn't get anything. If a store was open, you better be lucky and glad that you got there and they had something.
Mm-hmm.
So, if anything happens, it'll be chaos. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Well, they were warned it was coming, and they talk about the Dancing with the Stars syndrome. They knew how many days in advance it was coming and how many people still got trapped in New Orleans.
Well, I think those are some unfortunate people. A lot of them, they didn't even have a vehicle to get anywhere. You're right. There's a lot of people that stayed.
I got $1, I can get on a bus.
Well, that's true, but, I don't know what to say to that, but I think a lot of them were unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree with
Monetary
that.
Wise.
Well, guys, what I want to do in the time remaining is I want to give each of you some time with the audience. Just take about 5 minutes each, and what you feel are the major concerns for August and September beyond. I think everyone can kind of see it coming, but let's just take it one at a time. And let's start with Richard.
Well, once again, things are just going to get worse. Multiplied. That's if it's anything other than a comet. I don't know how deep you want me to go into it, but there are things on the internet that even get me to thinking, even